We have so much that's encumbering our health.
Right.
The food we're eating, the stress we're under, the environmental toxins we deal with, the trauma we've had, and it kind of builds on us like layers and layers that take away from our true nature.
Right.
And our ability to actually be fully alive and to embrace life and to engage in life and do whatever the hell it is you want to do with your life, whether it's, create a company, whether it's just to be a good parent or
Right.
be a good partner or be a good member of your community, whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to, learn how to be a bicycle, sort of racer, or you want to be a downhill skier, whatever it is you want to do, you should be able to do, and your health shouldn't be limiting you.
Right.
And so many people today are encumbered, especially given our incredible domination of the food system, producing ultra-processed food that's killing all of us, especially African American, Hispanic, and Native American communities. And so for me, it's really about helping people to understand that they're just a few days away from feeling better if they knew how their bodies worked.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Peace and riches blessings, everyone. As you know, I am Michael B. Beckwith, founder of Agape International Spiritual Center and the host of Take Back Your Mind, this podcast that is about you taking back your mind so that worry, doubt, fear, anxiety, anxiousness, the projection of worst-case scenarios into the future begins to be dissolved, so that you're living in a moment in which you get to glean wisdom, transformational knowledge, creative intelligence, inspiration, not just from your rational, linear personality, but you get to open yourself up to the wisdom of the ages. That's, guess what? It's within you. But you have to take back your mind and break free from the paradigm of your littleness and your way that you identify yourself with your past and all the things that have happened to you. Today, I'm with Dr. Mark Hyman. Listen, you probably know about this man already, but in case you're about the 6 people who do not know who he is, let me tell you, he's a practicing family physician, an internationally recognized leader, speaker, educator, and advocate in the field of functional medicine. 15-time New York Times best-selling author, the founder and director of the Ultra Wellness Center, the founder and senior advisor for the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine, board president for clinical affairs for the Institute of Functional Medicine, and co-founder and chief medical officer of Function Health. He's also the founder and chairman of Food Fix Campaign, which is dedicated to transforming our food, this is extremely important, and agricultural system through policy. His podcast, The Doctor's Pharmacy, Pharmacy, has over 200 million downloads. He's a regular medical contributor to several television shows and networks. I saw you on a PBS special recently. I was out of town, and I turned it on. I said, oh, Mark's on television. Very good. Including the CBS This Morning Today, Good Morning America, The View, The Fox, and CNN. Today, we're going to talk about living a long and happy life, wellness, and wisdom for longevity. He's going to add some of the other things he's doing as well. But listen.
Amen.
How you doing?
Great. I'm great. I'm so glad to be here with you, Michael.
I mean, you got a big smile on your face.
You were on my podcast, so this is nice to be on yours.
Right.
I love it.
And also, what was the thing I did? Feel Good Seminar.
Feel Good Summit.
Feel Good Summit.
Doesn't everybody want to feel good?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely an indication that you're doing something right.
Yeah. James Brown was a headliner. I feel good.
I feel good. But, listen, nutritional, spiritual, lifestyle approach. You teach people how to synergetically pull all that together to live the life, let's say, that they're actually meant to live.
Yeah.
Beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just spin off on that.
Well, Michaelangelo, when he was asked to see a great sculpture, he says, no, I just basically take the rock and take away everything that doesn't belong to let the beauty and magic emerge what's inside.
Right.
And that's really true for us too. We have so much that's encumbering our health.
Right.
The food we're eating, the stress we're under, the environmental toxins we deal with, the trauma we've had, and it kind of builds on us like layers and layers that take away from our true nature,
Right.
and our ability to actually be fully alive and to embrace life and to engage in life and do whatever the hell it is you want to do with your life, whether it's, create a company, whether it's just to be a good parent or
Right.
be a good partner or be a good member of your community, whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to, learn how to be a bicycle, sort of racer, or you want to be a downhill skier, whatever it is you want to do, you should be able to do, and your health shouldn't be limiting you.
Right.
And so many people today are encumbered, especially given our incredible domination of the food system, producing ultra-processed food that's killing all of us, especially African American, Hispanic, and Native American communities. And so for me, it's really about helping people to understand that they're just a few days away from feeling better if they knew how their bodies worked.
Right.
Right. When I went to medical school, I didn't get a class creating Health 101.
Right.
Like I got this disease and that disease, and
you were dealing with symptoms.
This
primarily.
drug and that drug, and it's like, what disease do you have? What drug do I give? That's all I learned.
Right.
I didn't learn about the science of health, and I spent the last 35 years studying the science of health.
Right.
What does that look like? How do we define it? How do we get people healthy as opposed to treating disease? Because when you get people healthy, disease goes away as a side effect.
Right. And so is this what you call functional medicine?
It's called functional medicine. Sort of, what does that mean? What is functional medicine?
Right. What does that mean?
It's the opposite of dysfunctional medicine.
That's good.
Yeah. And basically, is what we got everywhere else is dysfunctional medicine. I mean, I literally got off the phone with a friend of mine who's, very well-known person, and she was telling me about her friend who had this terrible condition, going to Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, everywhere, can't get help. I'm like, I know exactly what's wrong with her because I understand the body from the ground up and the root cause. So functional medicine is about root causes. It's the root cause of disease. What are the root causes of health? Mm-hmm. And how do we create health as a way of treating disease? When you create health, disease goes away as a side effect. And for me, it's looking at the things.
I don't want to throw away that sentence that you just said. That disease goes away as a side effect.
Side effect of getting healthy, yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you create the conditions for health, think about when you have a farm or a garden. If you have a healthy, thriving ecosystem, like let's say a complex regenerative farm with lots of different plants and healthy soil and lots of good water in the soil and a biodiverse ecosystem of pollinators and birds and insects, it's a thriving ecosystem, and you don't really need to do much to it, and it's healthy.
Right.
And so we are like a complex ecosystem, but we've turned more like into a monoculture industrial farm in our bodies. So we're polluting ourselves with all this crap, with food and chemicals, just like we are our soils. And so when you have healthy soil, you have a healthy plant. You don't need pesticides, you don't need herbicides, you don't need fertilizer, because you're creating a healthy environment for the plant to thrive. We want to create a healthy environment for our body to thrive. And so we have to understand, what are the conditions for health? How do we create that? What are those things that are the impediments to health? What are those things that take us away from being fully healthy? And what are the ingredients for health? What are those basic raw materials, the things that we need to do to keep this biological organism running?
Right.
So we can actually be able to do our spiritual work. Because, I used to work with Rick Warren at Saddleback Church.
Yeah, right.
And Rick and I would get up on stage in front of 10,000 people and say, if you believe God lives in you, why are you feeding him crap?
Right. This is the temple.
Yeah.
Why are you putting garbage in the temple?
And how do you expect to be a member of your community and to serve God if you feel like crap?
Right.
I call it FLC syndrome, when you feel like crap.
That's great.
I mean, all you want to do is scroll Instagram or watch Netflix or, just
go to sleep,
eat some chips. That's not what we're meant to be or do. We're meant to actually feel good so we can be engaged in life and have the joy of being able to serve God, to have deep relationships, to have our mission in life, to do good work, to contribute to our communities, to be a member of our family where we can show up and be a good person. I mean, these are just basic things that make us happy and joyful, right? But we have so much encumbrances on that because like Michaelangelo and the rock, it's like we're like that David buried in the rock, And
it's all covered up.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much. I mean, I think most people don't think it takes a long time or it's hard to do. But my daughter, she's in medical school. Mm-hmm. And she's, under a lot of stress, and she's really not taking care of herself, not exercising, eating junk food. Of course, even her dad. Hope she doesn't listen to this podcast. She'll get mad at me. But anyway, she's like, I said, look, here's what you got to do. Like, just start doing these basic things. So don't eat crap. Eat these good foods that take away the bad stuff, put in the good stuff. See how you feel. And she was depressed, and she was sluggish, and she was tired, and she had stomach issues. And she's like 3 days in, she's like, Dad, this is amazing. I don't feel bad. My depression's gone. My stomach's better. I have energy.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
you're only a few days away from feeling good, and people don't realize that.
Right. So most people don't. You talk about ultra processed food. Now, most people don't realize that most of that processed food is more man-made chemicals than food at times.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. If you look at what is the definition of food.
Yeah.
If you go to the dictionary right now, food is basically something that it supports the growth and thriving of life.
Right.
And now by that definition, Cheetos or Doritos are not food.
Right.
They're just not food. They do the opposite. They take away life. They
Right.
cause illness and sickness. And so it's become the majority of our diet. I mean, this wasn't the case. And it's interesting when you look back now today in America, the African American communities are the most affected by poor health. They have
food deserts and
higher rates of diabetes.
Right,
They have
right.
4 times the risk of amputations. They're more likely to have kidney failure and be in dialysis. They're more likely to die young. And like in COVID, they were 30% of the population in some communities, but 70% of the deaths.
Right.
Now, in the 1970s and the 60s, African Americans were healthier than whites.
Right.
I don't know if you ever saw Aretha
Wow,
Franklin.
really?
Yeah, go watch Amazing Grace, Aretha Franklin movie. Have you
Oh
seen
yeah, I
that?
saw it.
It was
Some of my
filmed
choir members are in that.
Okay, amazing. It was in Oakland, and scan the audience. You're not going to see one overweight black person in that audience.
Right.
Nobody. Even Aretha Franklin was skinny then.
Right. She was thin then.
Yeah, and so what happened? What happened is that the food industry decided to produce more food from all the excess corn and industrial products that were made, soy, corn, and wheat,
Right.
that were. It was political during Nixon era. He wanted to grow more cheap food so he could stay in power, and that led to the overproduction of a lot of food that it then turned into junk food and processed food. So we have this explosion of processed food. And essentially what they've done is they've taken what used to be real food, like corn the Indian ate is fine, or soybeans that the Chinese ate is fine, or ancient grain wheat is fine. We fueled Alexander the Great conquering all Europe or whatever he did on Zea wheat, which is an ancient heirloom wheat that was full of protein and didn't have much gluten in it. But we've taken these and kind of modified them in ways that make them super starchy, that take away protein, that deplete them of nutrients, and then we deconstruct them and make them into these reconstructed frankenfoods. And these frankenfoods have different protein structures. And so the actual structure and shape of the molecules is different, and our bodies don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And so they've done studies where at the NIH where they've given, one week they give people as much of whole foods as they want. So eat as much as you want until you're full.
These whole foods.
Yeah, they lock them away and say, here's all food. The next week they give them ultra-processed food. When they ate the ultra-processed food, they ate 500 calories more a day. Now, to put that in perspective, if you do that every day for a year, you're going to gain 52 pounds in a year.
Wow.
So it dysregulates our appetite. We talk about GLP-1 deficiency, Ozempic and all this stuff. It can be helpful for some people, but why do we have low GLP-1, and why are we all struggling with
Tell
that?
them what that is. What's GLP-1?
So you heard Ozempic or Wegovy, these weight loss drugs, and they're all the rage and all over the news. Oprah took it. She did a whole special on it. And what they are peptides that affect your appetite. And we have normal systems in our body. It's something our body actually makes.
Right.
We have normal systems in our body that are designed to regulate our appetite.
Right.
So why are we all overeating?
Yeah.
It's because we have dysregulated our own biology by eating all this crap.
Now, is some of that on purpose from the food industry to make us want to keep eating more when we're not hungry?
Well, there you go. Okay, you just opened up a can of worms there. So, so there you go.
Just asking a question.
So listen, there's a guy named Michael Moss who wrote a book called Salt, Sugar, and Fat. He works for the New York Times, and he did an investigative journalism report, essentially, that turned into a book, where he interviewed over 300 food industry related people, scientists, CEOs, marketing people over many years. And what he found was that there were really is an insidious process by the food industry to create addictive foods. They have something called taste institutes, where they hire what they call craving experts to create something that they call, these are all their own internal terms, they call the bliss point of food. What is that perfect little crunch or mouthfeel or jolt of sugar that's going to give you that buzz in your brain?
Right.
It's going to make you feel like you're getting high.
Right.
And then they literally have these taste institutes with craving experts to create the bliss point of food, and then they figure out we want to target heavy users. So what are heavy users? Well, it's easier if you're drinking, a can of Coke every day. It's easier to get you drinking a 2-liter bottle of Coke than it is to get me starting with a can of Coke. So they go for people already doing it, and then they target them. And those communities are the African American communities, Hispanic communities, and it's literally a second genocide.
Yes.
I mean, this is a different kind of racism. I actually did a talk at the Riverside Church in Harlem, and it was during the anniversary, I think the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's speech about Vietnam.
Yes.
And Andrew Cuomo was there, and it was I marched across Harlem, and I got up on stage and I talked about this whole concept of food oppression and food racism and how it's affecting these communities far more. We talk about gun violence, we talk about police violence, but there are far more people that die every single day from food than I mean, there was a pastor in Baltimore who said more people die from sweets than the streets.
Wow.
And I think these communities don't really even know that they're being kind of captured by the food industry, targeted them, and we know this from data from Yale that the advertising dollars are spent more heavily for African American Hispanic kids to get them to eat more of this crap. And if you're an African American kid, you're likely to drink twice as much soda as a white kid.
Right. And so one soda, how much water does it take to neutralize that nonsense?
I don't think it works like that. I mean, I would say, having one once in a while is not going to kill you, but having it every day, 1 can of soda a day increases the kid risk of chance of being obese by 60%.
One can soda a day. Yeah,
think about it. It's got like 9 to 10 teaspoons of sugar in 1 can. Now, I'm not talking about 20 ounces. I'm talking about a regular
can of soda.
Yeah. So when you start drinking the 20 ounces or the 2-liter bottles, you're way over the limit. I mean, the average kid has 34 teaspoons of sugar a day, and we had 22 teaspoons a year as hunter-gatherers if we were lucky.
Right.
I just got back from Africa, and I visited the Hadza tribe, which is one of the last hunter-gatherer tribes.
Right.
And, they actually get a lot of honey. When they eat 20% of their diet is honey, I'm like, that's a lot of sugar. But they eat 150 grams of fiber, which is like a sponge. It soaks up all the sugar. And so we don't eat more than 8 grams of fiber on average in America.
Wow.
Because all our food is so processed and pulverized, and that's got no fiber in it.
Right. So what's high fiber food for people?
Real food. If God made it, eat it. If man made it, leave it.
Right.
Basically, it's vegetables, fruit, nuts, seeds, beans, grains, just food.
Well, the other thing about what you're saying is that fast food stuff is cheap. I mean, they can get like 2 burgers for $5 or something like that, or something really crazy.
Yeah.
How do they do that? How do they make that so cheap?
Well, they're not really. I don't know if you know this, but like the average McDonald's burger is mostly not beef, right?
Yeah,
it's filler and cellulose and soy and all kinds of weird crap. I mean, there's 34 ingredients in chicken a nugget, and only one of them is chicken.
I know. I know.
So and these things are designed to be addictive, and so they really have driven down the prices because of our commodity support for farmers. So we made it cheap for farmers to grow more corn, to produce more high fructose corn syrup, to produce more soybeans, to produce more wheat, and we made it really cheap for farmers to produce. Not cheap for them to make it, but actually the price is cheap at the checkout counter.
Right.
It's not the real price of the food.
Right.
If you were to actually,
because we're subsidizing that, right?
100%. We're subsidizing. We for example, take corn. We pay for it 4 times. We pay for growing the corn by supporting the farmers.
Right.
We pay for the destruction of the soil and the ecosystem and loss of biodiversity and pollinators, destruction of our waterways because of the nitrogen runoff and the fertilizer that kills all the fish in the rivers and the lakes and the oceans. We're seeing the damage from the pesticides and the herbicides to the ecosystem, to ourselves. And we're paying. Who's paying for that? The agricultural companies are not paying for it. The food companies are not paying for it. We are paying for it as a society, taxpayers. And then we pay for providing these junk foods to the poor through SNAP, which is a great program, but there's no N in SNAP. It's a supplemental nutrition assistance program, but there's no nutrition in it. Food security is important, but nutrition security is also important.
Right.
Having nutrients in your food, not just junk food.
Right.
And 75% of the $100 billion plus that's spent for SNAP is on junk food. 10% is on soda.
I've seen some of the stuff that they deliver.
10% is on soda. Think about that, Michael.
And you mentioned Cheetos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They put that stuff in there as well.
All of it, yeah. You can't buy a rotisserie chicken, but you can buy, a 2-liter bottle of soda on a SNAP. And so we pay for that. And then after the people get sick who are eating it, we pay for Medicare and Medicaid. So we're paying for it over and over, we socialize the costs and privatize the profits.
Right.
We let the food companies take the money all the way to the bank while taxpayers and the government and society pays the cost.
Right. And this is why you also call it a kind of a genocide as well, because people are dying at a much faster rate or spending a lot of time in the hospitals, going over and over and over again to correct something.
What kind of life is that for people? So if you want to have a good life, it's hard to have a good life if you're sick. There's a Chinese proverb that says, "A healthy man wants many things. A sick man wants only one thing."
Right. I've said that a lot.
To not be sick, right?
Yeah, right. Healthy man has many visions.
Right.
A sick man only has one.
That's right.
To be healthy.
That's right.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit. I mean, you're covering a lot of material here.
I know. Sorry. I get rolling.
That's why I got you on here.
I get rolling.
I wanted a medical doctor to say a lot of things that I say, but I wanted you to be here. I've followed you for many, many years. And I mean, I've watched you on your PBS. It was PBS,
yeah,
right?
PBS.
Yep. And other things that you've done. And you're very bold and courageous because you say things that a lot of other people won't say.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of other doctors won't even broach the topic, and you'll just say the truth.
Yeah. Well, we got to tell the truth. That's what you do. You tell the truth.
Yeah, I can't do it. I answer to a higher calling.
So do I. And when I see injustice, I have to speak out. And I'm Jewish, and there's a really.
It looks like you're joyous to me.
I'm joyous. I'm joyous, and I'm Jewish. And there's a wonderful concept called tikkun olam, which you probably are familiar with. Yes. Tikkun olam is to repair the world.
Right.
Right, to repair the world. There's also tikkun hanefesh, which means to repair your soul.
Right.
So we have to do both. We have to both repair our souls and repair the world. And so when there's injustice, when there's oppression, when there's challenges, I can't help myself but speak out against it.
Absolutely. Now, how would you compare our medical system with the other quote unquote advanced societies?
I mean, it's
England,
terrible.
Canada.
I mean, it's terrible. We spend more than twice as much as any other nation on healthcare, and we are like 60th in most healthcare outcomes.
60th?
Yeah, so in terms of life expectancy is going down. Yeah. Our children born today are going to live sicker, shorter lives than their parents.
I know.
We're seeing increasing in infant and maternal mortality. We're seeing worse outcomes across all these healthcare spectrums that we should be at the top of the world in because we spend more than anybody else. We have the best doctors, the best healthcare system. Everybody wants to get here. And if you have some horrible crisis or a horrible disease, you come and it's great. But for the chronic illnesses that are caused by food and by the way we live, we're really lousy at dealing with those. And so we're pouring more money after bad, and we're not dealing with the root cause. So what I do is root cause medicine.
Right.
And root cause medicine is about really understanding why. Right. And I realized I could not cure diabetes in my office. Mm-hmm. That's why I wrote a book called Food Fix. That's why I started a nonprofit to go to Washington and try to advocate for policy change to actually give people access to affordable.
How is that coming? Are you being listened to?
Yeah, absolutely. I literally was just talking today on the phone with the chairman of the Health Subcommittee for the Ways and Means, which is the big committee in Washington that distributes all the tax dollars, basically. And they're in charge of Medicare, which is over $1 trillion program. He personally is overseeing $1 trillion expenditure. Now, that you have to understand, that's like 1/6 of the entire government budget.
Right.
And he's on my team, and we're strategizing about how do we make food as medicine, how we put in bills to actually pay for people to get food instead of drugs when they're sick to make them better.
Food is medicine.
Yeah, food is medicine. We're trying to get doctors to learn about nutrition in medical school. We're changing labeling on the packaging where you can see what you're eating. And you go to other countries in Europe or in South America, they have like stop sign warning. This is bad, like cigarettes. Like this is going to kill you. Don't eat it. Or they'll have like a red or yellow or green stoplight to know. Anybody could tell what that's good or bad for you. If you're 2 years old, you can know. But now we don't know that stuff. So we're also advocating for change in how we grow our food and supporting farmers. We got $30 million for BIPOC farmers to do regenerative agriculture in Pennsylvania. So we're really moving things forward.
Things are happening.
Yeah, but it's incremental. But we need.
But you're working against the system, not work. I'm
working outside and inside. I'm working inside and outside. I'm like driving consumer change. I'm driving policy change from the inside. I just had a friend on my podcast this morning who was calling out Kellogg's for what they're doing, which is essentially poisoning our children with Fruit Loops and other colored cereals with these dyes like red dye number 40, yellow dye number 5, BHT, a preservative that are banned in Europe. They're banned in Canada. They're banned.
They won't even let some of our stuff even in Europe.
No.
The cereals, the breads.
But they make the same product. They make Fruit Loops in Canada and they make Fruit Loops in Europe, but they don't use that junk.
Why?
Why do they use it here and not
yeah.
there? Because here nobody's ended up talking about it. In Europe, they're like, you can't use that shit here.
I mean, but why do they want to use it here? Wouldn't it be cheaper?
It's cheaper. It's maybe incrementally cheaper, a few cents a box, and all they're about maximizing profit. So they don't care if they're poisoning the kids, if they can squeeze a few more pennies out of a box of cereal, and they're killing us.
I know, because I heard one of the Kellogg's people talk about the fact because the people were suffering from poverty and not buying food.
My God.
They were saying something like, just eat the
cereal.
cereal.
For dinner.
Cereal for dinner. I heard that.
Give chicken a night off. That was true. That was so tone deaf. The CEO of Kellogg's did that, and he put ads on TV. It seemed like a Saturday night parody, but it was true. And cereal is probably the worst invention ever created by humanity. And it was initially by Kellogg, was a guy named Kellogg who was in high fiber and eating healthy, and that was different. Now it's just all this highly processed stuff that is, it's just often more sugar pronounced than sodas.
Eating sugar with a little bit of other ingredient.
Yeah.
Wow. This is Dr. Mark Hyman. He's a functional medicine doctor, and he's getting to the root cause of the issues, not only of dis-ease, but the root cause of health, so that we can feel good, so that we can live our mission fully and completely and not be apathetic, lethargic, depressed, live in a state of fear all the time, because I believe, and he believes, your natural frequency is happiness, your natural frequency of joy. And how can you go out into the world and share your gift to make the world a better place before you leave it? This is Dr. Mark Hyman.
Well, that made me think of something really important that we haven't talked about, which is we know that if you eat junk, you're going to gain weight and get diabetic and high blood pressure and all these things. But what most people do not realize is those same foods destroy our brain.
Okay.
And
Alzheimer's, dementia, etc.
Yes, but more. Anxiety, depression, violence, aggression, ADD is all driven by the food that we're eating. And the data is so clear on this. I did a podcast on this a while back. I published it. It's on my Doctor's Pharmacy podcast. That's Pharmacy with an F. And I talked about how ultra-processed food, the data is so clear now, how it's causing neuroinflammation, brain inflammation, brain on fire. When your throat's sore and you got a sore throat, it's red and it hurts.
Yes.
When your brain's on fire, it doesn't hurt, but it manifests as depression, anxiety, violence, division, all these things we're seeing. And even in prisons, and they say if you give prisoners healthy food, the violence goes down by 56%.
Absolutely.
If you get in kids in JD, juvenile detention centers, you give these kids in juvie, you give them healthy food, violence and aggression goes down by 97%.
97%.
Suicide by 100%. It's a leading cause of death in that age group.
Right.
I've
read some of those studies.
The third leading cause of death in that age group. And then the use of restraints goes down by 75% by just cutting out the crap and eating real food. The brain is affected by what we're eating, and it's causing huge mental health crisis. And it's the ultra-processed foods and the sugar and the starch and the chemicals that are in our food that are causing the disruption.
Right.
And nobody's talking about it. It's just nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, I read studies similar to that showed that as people are maturing from a baby up to whatever age when the brain is developing, if they don't have proper nutrition, they can't even logically see the consequence of their action.
Yeah, well, let me explain that.
Yeah.
So you have a part of your brain that's like the reptile brain, the lizard brain, the fight or flight, ancient survival brain. It's called your limbic brain. And that we call it the 4 Fs in medical school. Feeding, it governs feeding, fight or flight, and reproduction.
Reproduction with an F. Fooling around.
Exactly. Fooling around. Exactly. and so those are hardwired into us. There's a part of our brain called the frontal lobe. That's the adult in the room. That's our higher consciousness, our higher self that says, ooh, probably isn't good to say that or do that or punch that guy in the nose or steal that guy's money or take his car, We have that. What happens when you eat these foods is you get brain inflammation, and it disconnects those two parts of the brain. So then there's no adult in the room. So that's why our society is so divisive and so conflicted and so much hatred, and like people can't have normal civil discourse anymore. Just disagree about anything. You're like
you hate the person you disagree with rather than having a conversation.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to talk to people that think differently than me. I don't want to just talk to people who think the same thing I do. Like I learned from that and I changed my mind. I'm like, wow, that was interesting. I didn't know that, and I want to see how you see the world. I know how I see the world. I want to see how you see the world. Maybe it'll inform my views. And so we don't really have that anymore. And part of that is a lot of reasons for it, obviously social media and everything. But I do think that food plays a significant role.
Tell us a little about your own journey of healing your own brain that also informed a lot of things for you, because you went through it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I had a hero's journey. I wish I didn't, because it was painful.
But you brought a lot of information for a lot of people.
We do, yeah. There's a lot of goodness that came from it, but I was a lot of suffering for me. So, I was very healthy when I was younger. I actually was, ran when I was a teenager, jogging. In college, I was super healthy. I was vegetarian. I did yoga. I ran every day. I was super healthy. And then throughout my 20s, I was. And then in my 30s, I went to China, and I lived there for a year, and it was in the winter, and I breathed in all this polluted air. And I got a air filter. I cleaned it every day and breathed in the polluted soot that was concentrated. I get mercury poisoning. I didn't know it. And I got home, and I was okay for a bit, and then everything collapsed. And I had chronic fatigue syndrome. My brain stopped working. I was sort of a guy who could see 30 patients in a day and never take a note and dictate everybody's chart and have everything perfectly conserved in my mind at the end of a day, to not being able to know where I was at the end of a sentence when I started a sentence. Like, where was I? I don't know what I was talking about.
Memory was just gone. And
I couldn't focus. I couldn't pay attention. I couldn't sleep. I felt depressed. So it was like I had ADD, dementia, and depression all at once. And my brain literally broke. And the rest of my body broke too. My gut broke and my immune system broke. And I literally had to reverse engineer my way back to health. And that's when I discovered functional medicine, which is what I've been kind of shouting from the rooftops about for the last 35 years.
Right. Yeah, you've been shouting pretty loudly. I've been loving it.
It took a while. People started to listen, but it's like, first it was like two people.
When you say you built it back up, what did you actually do?
Well, first I had to get rid of the mercury. So I had to detox the mercury in my body. I had to change my diet to fix my gut. I had to get rid of, I wasn't eating that bad, but I had to get rid of a lot of starch and sugar and carbs that I liked. I started using nutrients and supplements to help revive my system back on track. And I really sort of worked really deeply to detoxify my body, detoxify my gut, and heal my body, and using a whole range of different therapies that we use in functional medicine, which is diet and lifestyle treatments, exercise, optimizing sleep, managing stress, optimizing your nutrient status, balancing your hormones, fixing your gut, detoxifying from things you need to be getting rid of from your life, both people and food, and junk. So
what you teach is what you did.
I do, yeah. I mean, I still work on it every day. It's a work in progress. I'm constantly learning and growing, and I get new sicknesses. I have to figure out some new thing I have to figure out.
Right. Using food as medicine. So, what would you tell people today? Where can they start? What supplements are necessary? What nutrition is necessary as a foundation?
I think as I said, I used to preach in Saddleback Church, work with Rick Warren, wrote the book called The Daniel Plan. It was a faith-based wellness program. And, we actually won the New York Times bestseller. We won the Christian Book of the Year award. I think I'm the only Jew to win that award. Well, there was
I'm the only person that was on the cover of the Jewish Journal.
There you go.
Only non-Jew.
Yeah, you go. Well, there was another guy about 2,000 years ago. He wrote a book, but
Yeah. No, he didn't write.
he didn't write.
His life was the
subject of the book.
He was a Jewish guy.
Right. So anyway, he would get up on stage and say, it's really simple. When you go to eat something, ask yourself one question. Did God make this, or did man make this?
Right.
Did God make an avocado? Yes. Did God make a Twinkie?
No.
Right? And even a 2-year-old can get that.
Right.
And so start with just eating real food.
Right.
And if you don't know how to make it, you don't know how to cook it. I mean, I work in Cleveland, and there's a black community there, and there's a hospital that's part of Cleveland Clinic called South Point, and it's mostly African-American community. I did a cooking class. I thought a few people would show up. There were 300 African-American women in that cooking class trying to learn how to make healthier food. Because they were so hungry to learn and to do the right thing, and they didn't know how.
Right.
And so you've got to, now it's great. You got YouTube. You can learn how to cook. If I don't know how to make something, I just look it up on YouTube.
Right.
So you can learn how to cook. My mother always used to say, if you can read, you can cook. Follow a recipe. I've got tons of free recipes on my website, drhyman.com. You can go check it out. And it's food that actually is good and good for you. It tastes, because if it tastes bad, who's going to eat it?
So it tastes good.
It tastes good and is good for you.
Right.
And so you really have to start with just eating real food and cutting out the ultra-processed food. If people just could cut out ultra-processed food and cut out all the sugars and the starches.
When you say starches, like what?
Well, like
what would you call
bread and...
So all 100% no bread or gluten-free?
I mean, a little bit. I mean, if you have whole grain,
fine.
fine. It's like there's breads you can have, and I have recipes for it. But occasionally it's fine. It's just the amount of volume.
People eat bread all the time.
Think about it. If you look at the data in America, we eat about 152 pounds of sugar and 133 pounds of flour per person per year. That's 3/4 of a pound a day. That's a pharmacologic dose. Now, I'm not having that much, so some of you out there are eating a lot more.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. And so that's just overwhelming our bodies with signals that completely screw up our
That's like people eating those sandwiches and those fake burgers from whatever.
Don't eat that.
Yeah.
Just eat real food.
Yeah.
And I think just start with simple things. Learn a few recipes. Have protein for breakfast. Don't eat sugar for breakfast. We all eat sugar for breakfast. We have sweetened coffee, sweetened teas. We have bagels, muffins. We have French toast, pancakes, cereal. I mean, this is just sugar for breakfast. It's the worst way to start your day, and it's going to make you crave more sugar.
You're going to become depressed too.
And you become depressed.
Yeah.
I need another jolt of sugar to kind of deal with the low mood.
Right.
And we know, addiction is a real thing, right? We know alcohol and opioid addiction is a big deal. 14% of adults are alcohol addicted. 14% of adults and 12% of kids are food addicted. This is not by some kind of shady criteria. This is the Yale Food Addiction Score, which is essentially a validated metric to look at food addiction, biological addiction. And it's real. And like I said, these food industry companies know it. They have the taste institutes with the craving experts to create the bliss point of food. They're all over this stuff.
So it's not people, it's profit.
And they know they're doing it. And they try to pretend like the cigarette makers. Oh, we didn't know it was addictive. Oh, we didn't know it was, like, of course they know.
It doesn't cause cancer. No. Yeah, basically. Now, it's something else you're involved in, something new. What is that?
Well, my whole life's been really about democratizing healthcare, about empowering people to be the CEO of their own health, about learning what's going on in their bodies, about giving them the information they need to make decisions to actually create good health so they can have a good life. And so I realized, I worked at Cleveland Clinic for 10 years. I worked in Washington. These are big institutions that change slowly. There's good people in them wanting to do good things, but it's a slog. So I'm like, listen, I'm at 64. I can't wait anymore. So I co-founded a company called Function Health. You can go to functionhealth.com/Mark to learn more about it. There's a wait list of about 150,000 people, but you can get in by using that code, functionhealth.com.
150,000 people on the wait list. But if they use what now?
Functionhealth.com/Mark.
What happens?
They can get in. So now once you get in, what is the wait list for? It's for getting access to your own biological data. So you can get access to a panel of over 110 biomarkers, lab tests, learn about what's going on metabolically, nutritionally, toxins, your gut, and pretty much hormones, everything you need to know about your health. And then it'll provide you with insights, actionable insights about what it means, what to do about it, and how to up-level your health by lifestyle, by sometimes supplements, by even if you need to go to the doctor, it'll tell you when you're going to go to the doctor. We're finding increasing cancer rates. We're finding people with metabolic issues and inflammation, autoimmunity, and 67% of people are nutritionally deficient, and they're walking around, they don't know it, and it makes them have the FLC syndrome when you feel like crap. And so I really believe that the future of healthcare is going to come outside. I mean, think about Apple. Like, Apple wasn't a phone company. It wasn't a music company. But it completely disrupted the music.
All of that.
So that's what we're doing in healthcare. And I think we're using the power of computational power to learn about your biology, because humans are so infinitely complex. And to think that one doctor could know it all, it's just ridiculous. I read a lot, but I can't read 9 million articles that are in the scientific literature on the National Library of Medicine. I can't read every textbook. I haven't seen billions of patients, so I have a huge database in my head. But computers can do that. They can digest all that information. They can read every scientific paper ever published. They can pull all the knowledge domains from experts.
The right use of AI.
Yeah, and they can use actually even functional medicine, what I do, put that in the system. So we're going to create this super connected database of information that's going to learn and help you to optimize your health. And eventually we're going to be able to scrape all your wearables, like your biosensors or rings or watches, your whole omics of your genome, your metabolome, your microbiome, everything, all your medical records, all going to go in there. And it's going to be the repository for all your health data that allow you to be empowered to change your life in real time and then track it over time. So it's like $4.99 a year for $15,000 worth of testing that you can do as a member, and you don't have to go through your doctor, insurance, or anything like that. And so
so you're outside this. So you're disrupting.
It's just democratized the whole thing, right?
Yeah. So a person does this, and they're going to get back in their hands like a readout on their own
body.
They
get a readout on their own body. They get a whole graphic readout. You get your biological age. Like I just did mine again, and I did a bunch of things to optimize my health, and I got a year younger in 5 months between the tests that I did.
Oh, outstanding.
So I'm trying to work.
The telomeres are increasing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
This is beautiful. Alpha waves are increasing. Everything.
I hope so.
Beautiful. This is great. You've given a lot of information here, man. I mean, you're really flowing. Anything else that we did not cover?
I mean, I think
You talked about neuroplasticity to a degree.
Yeah, I think the brain is this incredible thing that most of us don't understand. And most of us have heard, oh, well, if you live in a healthy lifestyle, it's good for your heart and prevent heart disease, or you can prevent diabetes. But who talks about preventing Alzheimer's? Who talks about actually your brain health? How do you live a brain healthy life?
Right.
It's kind of a novel idea. And the brain is connected to everything that's going on. I did a documentary series on this called The Broken Brain. And it's about how so much of our society has broken brains. The rise in neurodegenerative diseases and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and the rise in neurodevelopmental problems. 1 in 6 kids has some type of neurodevelopmental problem. What does that mean? ADD, learning disabilities, autism, the whole thing. And so when in mental health, our brains we have such a mental health crisis in this country. And so what's going on? Well, our body is connected to our brain. Everything that happens in our body happens in our brain. We were talking about this retreat you did, where you did brainwave analysis and looked at your ability to meditate. But if your body's toxic, if you're full of mercury, if your gut's a mess, if you're nutritionally deficient, if you don't have B12, it's going to be really hard to get enlightened if your body's trashed. So you have to fix your body to fix your brain. And most people don't really understand that. So and there's incredible work being done now at Harvard, Stanford. I've been shouting this for years. I wrote a book in 2009 called The Ultra Mind Solution about how to fix your broken brain by fixing your body first. And it was super radical. And I was talking about the microbiome and the brain. I'm gonna be like, oh, you're crazy. And now everybody's at Harvard, there's a Department of Nutritional Psychiatry. At Stanford, they look at the microbiome. At Stanford, there's a Department of Nutritional Psychiatry. There's a guy at Harvard named Chris Palmer who wrote a book called Brain Energy, which is curing schizophrenia and bipolar disease by putting people on a ketogenic diet, getting all the crap and the sugar and starch from their diet, and their brains wake up. It's like Rip Van Winkle.
Right. Now, the thing about it, old science says that once you lose brain neurons or it ages, you can't get it back. Now you're showing that you can actually recover all of that.
Of course. I mean, just exercising alone, taking a walk, increases a chemical called BDNF. It's like miracle grow for your brain, and it increases connectivity and plasticity. So we used to think, basically that what you got was what you got. But we now know that you can create new neural connections and you can create new brain cells even up to the time of death.
Right.
So
say that again.
We can create new connections and new brain cells even up to the time of death. They did a study of cancer patients who had diagnosed with cancer, and they gave them these radioactive labeled compounds that would get taken up by new dividing neurons.
Right.
And then when they died from cancer, not from a brain issue, they opened up their brain, they looked inside, and they saw brand new neurons developing even at the time of death from cancer.
Right. Now, what were they doing for that to occur?
Nothing. They were just living. But the point here is that your brain is constantly
growing.
Yeah, and you can make it go better.
Right.
And psychedelics are an interesting phenomenon because psychedelics actually are now found to increase neuroplasticity, to increase connectivity, to heal parts of the brain, to change things. I mean, it doesn't really make sense that you could have like one drug. Like imagine like you take your blood pressure drug like on January 1st and you don't need to take another one till next year.
Right.
And it's going to keep your blood pressure low. That's kind of how these drugs work. They change the structure and function of your brain. They create long-lasting effects around depression, anxiety, PTSD in a remarkable way. And I think they're going to be part of we kind of
a lot of it's becoming legal now.
Yeah, I mean, we had the whole war on drugs and Nixon and all that, and the hippies in the '60s and the psychedelic movement and Timothy Leary.
Well, I was just reading that article recently in the New Yorker where it was talking about the fact that everybody was examining it at that time, but Nixon stopped it because it was making people think more critically, and he couldn't force people to go into the service, go to Vietnam because they started thinking. They said, "Do I really want to go kill people I don't know?"
Well, it was the CIA that did a lot of the research on psychedelics. In fact, a lot of the psychedelic research came out of this crazy guy named Ken Kesey.
Yeah.
And they called the electrocholic acid test. We got a bus called Further, painted it in psychedelic colors, and drove across the country giving everybody LSD.
Right.
And he was actually a writer at Stanford in a fellowship. He wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And he wrote this book in a fellowship, but he had no money.
Right.
So he basically volunteered for the CIA at Stanford to be a guinea pig for LSD experiments. And he was like, wow, this stuff's great. And so then that kind of...
He wrote the book.
unleashed this whole psychedelic movement. But then it got shut down. And now I think, there's a lot of good science happening around the world looking at these as a very valid treatment for all sorts of problems that have really poor solutions, like PTSD and depression and trauma is very hard to deal with.
Yes, if you add that opening from some kind of psychedelic, and then you add a spiritual practice underneath that,
Exactly. Yeah,
you'll stabilize the expanded consciousness.
Exactly.
Rather than just getting high and coming down, getting high and coming down.
No, that's not
you actually stabilize it through meditation and things of that. Meditation, right nutrition, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, and they're being legalized not as sole treatments; they're being legalized along with psychotherapy.
Right.
So it's called psychedelic-assisted therapy.
Yes.
So it's not like you just take the drug and go to a party.
No.
It's like really
you
deep
actually
work.
do inner work. You do deep inner work to
Yeah,
stabilize
that's right.
the insight and the revelation.
That's right.
This has been great, man.
Yeah, it's so fun. Anytime. Talk to you all day long.
Yeah, the last time I was on your podcast, and we were dealing with feel good, and let's see. I almost said, anybody out there have a question? Well, tell us a little bit about your podcast so people can know about it.
Oh, yeah.
And you have a new book, a cookbook coming out.
I do. Yeah. So I have a podcast. It's called The Doctor's Pharmacy. We have about 250 million downloads. Yeah. And I cover all sorts of topics around health. Really, it's designed around empowering you to get to the answers for what's going on with your health from a different perspective than you hear from your traditional doctor. Right. And I encourage people to check that out. I have social media, Dr. Mark Hyman, everywhere you can find me. And I have a new cookbook coming out that's based on my book, Young Forever, which is the science of longevity. Right. And it's called the Young Forever Cookbook, and it's coming out June 4th.
And this has recipes. It
has recipes. There were recipes for the original one, but it got too long, and so I had to cut the recipes out. So I wanted to say more about longevity. So.
It's going to be a hard question, but what is your favorite nutritional something to take?
Supplement or food?
Both.
I
know you can't boil it down to one thing.
No.
So you can kind of vamp on it a little bit.
This is going to gross people out, but I think one of the most powerful foods on the planet are sardines.
Really?
Yeah, because they're high in protein. They're really high in omega-3 fats.
They
have lots of choline, which is great for your brain. If you have one, the bone's got calcium in it, and it's full of nutrients. So I think that's a superfood.
Okay. And what else?
He's like, next. He's like, next.
I know the dogs love it.
Well, I think one of the things that I think is kind of an interesting food that I really have come to really love and understand is a form of buckwheat that's from the Himalayas. So you have to understand, plants are basically trying to survive.
Right.
And when they have harsh conditions, they become tougher. And the way they become tougher is they produce more phytochemicals, which are the medicine in food, but they also make it taste good. So Himalayan tartary buckwheat is a form of buckwheat from the Himalayas that has more phytochemicals than almost any food on the planet. And most of them are immunomodulatory, so they improve your immune system. They're immunorejuvenating. And I like the Himalayan tartary buckwheat sprouted powder.
Is it easy to get?
Yeah, you can order online. Big Bold Health. I think it's bigboldhealth.com. I'm an investor. Just full disclosure. And my mentor is the one who started it, which is the main reason I'm supporting it. My mentor, Jeffrey
put it in my
Bland.
shake.
And it's so delicious. It's like nutty. It's cooked already. So Himalayan tartary buckwheat sprout powder, and it's great.
Yeah, I was reading an article about asparagus and I think it was artichokes that had some kind of enzymes in them for longevity. Have you studied any of that?
Well, what's interesting is there's probably, I don't know, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands or more phytochemicals in food, and we're just beginning to understand what they do. And the Rockefeller Foundation is spending $200 million to create the periodic table of phytochemicals, essentially to map out all these medicines in food. And so, an asparagus is a great food because it has prebiotic fibers in it. It has folate in it. And same thing with artichokes. Artichokes are incredibly powerful for detoxifying your body. They also have a lot of prebiotic fiber that fertilizes the good bugs in your gut. So I love those. So there's all these things we're finding. Like there's even like pomegranate has
I love pomegranate.
Something called ellagic acid in it, which this is a really cool story. Not exactly the direction maybe you want to go, but ellagic acid is a phytochemical. It's what we call a polyphenol. These colorful, dark compounds that are in colorful fruits and vegetables.
Right.
Now, when you eat it, that compound in the pomegranate gets metabolized by your gut bacteria if you have the right bacteria, and most of us don't.
Okay.
When it's metabolized, that compound, it turns into what we call a postbiotic, not a prebiotic or a probiotic, but a postbiotic. It's something that's a metabolite of gut bacteria that then you absorb in this beautiful symbiotic relationship with the bacteria, and it regulates your body in a magical way by killing off old mitochondria, by rejuvenating new mitochondria, by turning down inflammation, by increasing your fitness level, your oxygen carrying capacity without doing any exercise. It's amazing stuff.
Why wouldn't I like that?
It's great. So, but sometimes you have to take a supplement because we've screwed up our microbiome so much. But this is the beautiful mystery of the human body. We're living in this beautiful symbiotic world. And if we don't eat the right things that our bodies naturally evolve with, we're going to get sick and die fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, everyone, this is Dr. Mike Hyman. He's given us a lot of things to think about, but more importantly, to actually practice. Tune in to his podcast and check out his new cookbook, and just follow this guy. He's on the outside and on the inside of everything we need to know about functional medicine. Peace and blessings. You want to say any last things?
No, thank you everybody for listening and watching. And this is a great man who's doing great things in the world, and we love him.
Thank you. And this is a great man, and I followed him for a long time as well. As a matter of fact, I loved watching you on the Model Health Program with Sean Stevenson.
Oh yeah,
that's a good buddy of mine.
Sean.
We hang out. That's one of my dear friends. We hang out a lot.
Great. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's a beautiful man. So, peace and blessings, everyone. We will see you soon. Let your friends know about this podcast, only if they want to feel good. Peace and blessings. Blessings. This is the part of our Take Back Your Mind podcast where we take a moment of sacred silence. There's 4 S's: stillness, silence, and sacred solitude. You want to contemplate that. At times in your life, throughout the course of your day, you just want to become still. You don't want to project anxiety into the future. You don't want to ruminate about the past. You want to just be still, allow yourself to be silent, and then come into the feeling tone of sacred solitude and just be in this space. And when you pull away from the world of effects and circumstances, you come out of thinkingness. And you become aware that there's a part of you that's in tune with the infinite. The real you is in tune with the infinite. The infinite is intelligence, it's love, transformational knowledge, wisdom, and peace, not just as little belief systems, but real qualities of the infinite. And then that field begins to live through you. It begins to direct you in problem solving or dissolving issues, guidance and direction. So you're not using the figuring out mind to deal with the issues of your day. You're actually going beyond where there aren't any issues. And then you're guided into what is called right action from the field of intelligence. Just a few moments a day, 10 minutes, it grows to 20 minutes, and then you realize you can't live without it. As Einstein always reminds us, people love to quote this, you cannot solve any problem in your life at the level that the problem was created. The conscious mind and the rational mind can't solve the issues. The issues are dissolved at a higher frequency. So we're just going to take a few moments to become still. I invite you to have your feet firmly on the ground unless you're able to comfortably be in a lotus position. Close the outer eyes. Take a breath. Release. And you allow yourself to be still. Embrace an inner intention to wake up to your glorious nature. The ineffable, timeless dimension of you. Beyond your past identity, beyond your future desires, right here and right now is all of the presence and power and love. Be aware that your body temple is in the field of your awareness. You are not merely in your body temple. Your body temple is in your field of awareness. It's within you. Therefore, you can observe and bless your body temple. You can begin at the brain, the head, and just give it permission to relax into wholeness. The throat area, relax into wholeness. Shoulders, heart, cardiovascular system. It's in your field of awareness, relax into wholeness. Stomach, intestines, back, small of the back, spleen, liver, kidney. Relax into wholeness. Pelvic area, genitals, buttocks. Relax into wholeness. Thigh, hamstrings, knees, calves, ankles, feet, toes, all organs, all systems, all actions of the body are in your field of awareness. Give them all permission to be whole, to come into harmony with your celestial body that is incorruptible, timeless, ageless. You give you permission to be whole. Be still and silent and feel this sacred truth. Say in your awareness right now, I give permission for my body temple to be whole, to be healthy, to be vibrant. My brain is magnificent. And I am healthy. One more sentence, and it's happening now. Slowly open your eyes. Be aware that you are awareness itself. And let us say, and so it is. Now, so be it. Have a beautiful day, and thank you for taking just a few moments to be still in just a small bit of meditation. Have a beautiful day. I appreciate your letters and emails that you've been sending in, but also the notes you're sending on the Instagram and on the website, thanking me for Take Back Your Mind. And I thank you for your support. As I've said before, if you want to support Take Back Your Mind, support the sponsors. The main sponsor is the Agape International Spiritual Center, agapelive.com. We have a Facebook presentation, an Instagram presentation, a YouTube presentation, and a website presentation. You can donate to the sponsor at agapelive.com. It's one way that you can donate. It supports the podcast. Second sponsor is Nutrarise.com. You go to Nutrarise.com, those three lines up at the top, you touch that line, and you'll get Adaptozen. Adaptozen are my products. The Super Green Superfood Greens and the vitamin D3 K2. Both extremely good for your health, your nutrition. You support the sponsors, you're supporting the podcast. Have a beautiful, and as I like to say, a bright day, luminous day, because you are a luminous being. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind, and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.